what we have is the exact opposite. We have we talk way too little about machine learning. If we take into consideration the importance of machine learning already in our lives, because from the moment that we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, it's already machine learning algorithms that are helping us decide most of the things we do throughout our days. Social media, of course, it's all machine learning. All the ads that we see, Google is all machine learning. If you're going somewhere by car, usually open a transit app, it's all machine learning. And then now with ChatGPT, it's obviously machine learning. And then you get home, you turn on some streaming app like Netflix and so on. It's a machine learning app that is suggesting what you're going to watch. So the whole day, already today, where machine learning is its infancy, it hasn't really started, and it already runs our lives. Okay, so our whole day is decided, is guided by machine learning applications, and we barely talk about it, which is crazy. I mean, we do have a few news on artificial intelligence, on machine learning, but if we take into consideration how much it has already changed our life, an area that has barely started, I'm very critical of the saying that we live in a hype. I think we live in the opposite, a very irresponsible, we talk irresponsibly way too little about machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit, give you a little bit of my view of an intuition of what is machine learning, what is artificial intelligence, and I'm going to show you some of the studies that we have been doing in machine learning in healthcare at the University of São Paulo in Brazil, in the field of healthcare, how we're training those algorithms to improve healthcare decisions in Brazil, and how it can be done also here in Costa Rica and throughout Latin America, which are going to be the most important places in the world for machine learning healthcare. I'm going to show you why, and to show you the challenges that we face when we're trying to bring machine learning to healthcare in Latin America. So the name of my talk is Machine Learning for Improving Healthcare Decisions in Disadvantaged Areas, which are the areas that machine learning algorithms are going to have the most impact. So the area, as I told you, machine learning has already changed our daily lives, but it hasn't changed the most important area of all, which is healthcare. It has not transformed healthcare yet, and it's not even close to transforming healthcare. And the reason for this is that healthcare is more consequential. Okay? So it's one thing if an algorithm gets who is my best friend on Instagram wrong, or if it's better for me to turn right or turn left, or if I'm gonna like this new series or this new movie or not. Getting that wrong is one thing. Getting a diagnosis wrong is a whole different issue. Okay? So we need to be much more careful when we put machine learning algorithms in healthcare. But the thing is that it's the same algorithms. Okay? So our group in Brazil and other groups throughout the world have been seeing that it's the same algorithm that works for Instagram, the same algorithms that work for Google, for Waze, for Netflix, are the same algorithms that work for healthcare. Okay? So it's a guarantee that is going to change healthcare too. There's nothing big or special about healthcare data in terms of prediction, in terms of machine learning, that differentiates it from the other fields. It's the same challenges, it's the same issues, the same interactions, with the difference that it's a little bit more complex, and it's definitely more consequential. Okay, but it's a guarantee that's gonna completely change healthcare, as it had changed everything that has been tried with it. Okay, because it's more consequential, we have to be more careful, and I'm gonna show you in this talk what are the main challenges to make it work in disadvantaged areas, which are the areas that those algorithms are going to have the biggest positive impact of all. Okay, because the algorithms are going to help physicians, doctors here in San Jose. They're going to help physician doctors in São Paulo, in New York, in London, and so on. But the physicians from these areas are already pretty good. Okay? And you have cardiologists, you have pneumologists, you have specialists that are pretty good in what they do. Those algorithms are going to help them. Okay? But they're going to help them much, much more the physician from a rural area, right? Where this physician doesn't have all the exams that he or she would want to have. It doesn't have a specialist to send this patient, okay? And this physician is going to have the best specialist in the world right next to him or her, answering any questions that this physician has, and improving the quality of the decision and improving the quality of the interventions. Okay, so this physician that doesn't even have a cardiologist to send his patients are going to have the best cardiologist in the world right next to him, okay, ready to answer any questions and help him or her with any doubts that he or she has. So the impact is going to be huge, okay, for those areas. Okay, as I said before, it's going to help with the physician in San Jose. Okay, it's going to help with the physician in São Paulo, but it's going to have the largest impact in disadvantaged areas, and it's what I want to bring to you today. The challenges of how we're going to make those algorithms become a reality in those areas, in those disadvantaged areas where the machine learning algorithms are going to have the biggest impact. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the challenges and how we're trying to work around those challenges with data from Brazil. So the first thing, as I told you, so we do not have a machine learning hype. We have the exact opposite. So you're hearing about machine learning in the news because there have been very important scientific advances in the last 5 years, in the last decade. Okay, but we have been talking very little, almost nothing, if we compare to the importance that it has today, an area that hasn't started yet, really. And if you think about what the area is going to be in the next months or in the next years, it's crazy how little we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning. So why have we seen this exponential growth in scientific advances in the last 5 years in machine learning and artificial intelligence? Because of three main reasons. First one's the big data, right? We do need those data to train those algorithms. The algorithms needs many more examples to learn how to make intelligent decisions than us human need, especially in healthcare. So if a physician gets into contact with a new disease, the physician usually needs, I don't know, a few dozen examples to understand this disease. The algorithm probably needs hundreds or thousands of examples. And why is that? Because we already have so much knowledge within our minds when we learn new stuff. Usually algorithms are learning the world from zero, especially predictive algorithms, which is what we work in our lab. We're trying to predict the occurrence of an event. Usually those algorithms are learning the world from zero. Okay, those algorithms do not know what a human being is, what a disease is, what sickness is, what death is. So they're usually learning the world from zero. So they need many more examples. So the big data is very much necessary. And it's not only the big data. I'm going to talk a little bit of the disadvantaged areas. We need large and diverse sets of data. Okay, this is going to be the key. It's why we need collaboration right now between the different countries, between the different hospitals, between the different systems, because those algorithms need diversity. Okay. Thank you. So it's why we need those collaborations, and why we need international partnerships in order to get those diversities to the data. Okay, the algorithm needs to understand the nuances, okay, the details about different patients. So it needs diverse data. Okay, and we have been getting a lot of innovations on this, especially on electronic medical records, right? So healthcare is considered to be the field that collects the most data of all. It is estimated that 30% of every single data in the world comes from healthcare. So 30%, it's a lot. And it's been growing really fast, mostly due to the electronic medical records, which in Brazil are still mostly in paper. So we do have a lot of growth to have on healthcare data. And as we collect more and more data and more gets digitalized, we have the potential to improve a lot those algorithms in the next few months and years. Okay, so the first thing that has contributed to this growth of machine learning is the big data. The second thing is hardware, right? Computational power, especially for machine learning, which some algorithms depend on GPUs, which are video hardwares, started as video hardwares, and now have been mostly focused on machine learning algorithms. So as the field goes, you've probably been following NVIDIA, right? It's now one of the biggest companies in the world, which gets most of its money now from making machine learning hardware to run those algorithms. And because of this afflux of money, there have been a lot of investments within NVIDIA to even improve more and more and more. And now we have some pretty amazing GPUs, which the big tech companies have been buying away. And we do have a lot of new innovations coming in the last few months, in the next few months. Okay, so and the third part is because we have been getting so much interest in machine learning, we have this increase of the number of people working with machine learning. Right, we're talking here in the beginning how hard it is now to get our researchers from our lab to just focus on the PhD or in the masters, because the salaries are so large in the companies, and I think it's going to become even larger. As I told you, I think it's a very underrated field still, machine learning. I don't think there's a bubble. I think that there is very understatements on machine learning. So the salaries have been growing a lot and are going to keep growing, which is great for this field of technical innovation. So the more people you have in machine learning, and the more the firms and the university are investing in machine learning, the more good new ideas come. Okay, so those three areas, and especially right in the last few years, the most important scientific invention, in my opinion, of the century are the transformers. Comes from an article, 2018, Attention is All You Need, which is the most important scientific articles of this century, in my opinion again, which created the transformers, which are the basis for all the generative AI that you have been seeing. ChatGPT uses transformers, Midjourney, DALL-E, most of the generative AI that have been doing some amazing things, even though it's like 1 year old basically, or 2 years old basically, comes from this invention in 2018, which is called the transformers. So because of these three factors that have been growing a lot in the last few years, we have been seeing the growth of machine learning. The interesting part about these three factors is that it's three factors that are not going to stop growing. Okay. So the three factors that have been making machine learning grow are three factors that are just going to keep growing and growing and growing. Okay, so the big data, right? Every time we collect more data, especially in healthcare, people are using now the smart watches, which collects a lot of health data. All the exams are recorded. The electronic medical records are increasingly recorded. I was talking to Saul earlier. We're going to have a collection of every single data from the patients. So the physician only types down a small part of the information that the physician gets, right, on the electronic medical records. Pretty soon, it's already a reality in some hospitals in the US. The physician doesn't even have to type anything anymore. Okay, the algorithm just listens to the conversation and types everything down, fills everything in the electronic medical record. So the quantity of information that we're going to be able to get from those medical visits is going to increase a lot in the next few months. So everything that is, the information that physician gets, it's going to be digitally available. Advancing machine learning, as I told you, NVIDIA is one of the biggest companies in the world. It's going to keep growing, and it's probably going to have another competitions from other companies, so this will only increase. And as I told you, the salaries are going to keep increasing too. So we're going to have new innovations. So the three areas that are pushing machine learning forward are three areas that's just going to keep pushing machine learning forward. So it's a certainty that the area is just going to keep growing. So let me get into then. We in the academic area, we always like to define what we do. So what is artificial intelligence? Pretty simply, is the ability of machines, computers, to make intelligent decisions, right? Machines being intelligent or doing something that we recognize as intelligence, this is artificial intelligence. Okay? Pretty simply, it's what it is. The challenge here is to define intelligence, right? And to define intelligence, it's a sociology and psychology and then psychology challenge that runs through centuries and centuries. How do we define intelligence? We do have a lot of definitions for intelligence. The one that is most used, or the one that I like the most, is the ability to make the best possible decision given the available information. Okay? So given the available information, you make the right decision or the best decision, and you're able to transfer this knowledge to other fields. This is considered to be intelligence. Okay? What is the key here is available information. Okay, so you need to have information about the decision, about the area that you're trying to make a decision, for it to be an intelligent decision. Because if you make the best decision without knowing anything about the area that you're making the decision, it's just luck. Okay? So in order to consider it intelligence, you need to know about the field, have information about the field, and to process this information the best way possible to make this decision. In this case, we consider an intelligent decision. Okay? So what is the consequence of this definition? The consequence is that intelligence is, in the end, a challenge of information processing or data processing. Okay, you have to process this data or this information the best way possible to make the best decision about it. So this is a data science issue. Okay, intelligence is a data or information processing issue. Okay, and then how do we get there to machine learning? Okay, so today everything that you see, every news that you read about it or watch it on artificial intelligence, you can be sure 99% it's machine learning. Okay, so it's basically a synonym right now of artificial intelligence, machine learning. But it didn't used to be like this. What did we have before the growth or the dominance of machine learning? We used to have what we call now good old-fashioned AI or classic AI, okay? Which were algorithms, machines making decisions based on rules defined by humans. Okay. So you would type down the rules for the machine to make this decision, and it would just follow those rules, right? In healthcare, we used to call those expert systems. Okay, you would write it down a computer code, saying that, okay, if this patient has these symptoms, is this old, has this issue, so on, the diagnosis is this. Okay, so you would just type down the rules. The computer, the machine would just follow the rules and would make the decision through these rules. Okay, Google Translator up to 2016 was like this. I think that the older professors remember this. I do remember this. How bad was Google Translator until 2016? It was horrible. If you got anything in English, you could see straight away if it was from Google Translator, because it used rules from dictionaries and grammar rules. Okay, so it was predefined rules by humans. Okay, so the researchers from Google would just insert the rules, the grammar rules and the dictionary rules into Google Translator algorithms, and it would just follow those rules. Okay, it's what we call now classic artificial intelligence. So humans giving the rules to the algorithm just following those rules and making the decisions, right? How does it work now? Now it's a machine learning algorithm. It learns from examples. Okay, this is the big difference. So instead of giving the machines the rules or setting the rules ourselves, we now let the machines, the algorithms, learn the rules from examples. Okay, this is machine learning. Okay. Algorithms, machines, learning decision rules from data, from examples. Okay, and this has radically changed the field of artificial intelligence. So machine learning used to exist, of course, right? It's an old field, but we didn't have the data, we didn't have the techniques, we didn't have the hardware to run this. So the three factors that I told you about were not very developed. So it was really hard to train algorithms to learn decision rules from data. So the researchers back then would just program the rules. Okay, now we do have the algorithms, we do have the data, and we do have the hardware. So we're able to let the machines, the algorithms, learn the rules from data. Okay, which makes them much more powerful. Okay, because that's how we learn. Okay, most of the intelligent rules and decisions that we have in our heads, we learn through examples. We learn through data. Okay, even the most simple things we learn from data, and we're not able to explain exactly how we make those decisions. Okay, we're really bad in explaining our intelligent decisions. For example, how does a child learn the difference between a hippo and a rhino? The child doesn't get a set of rules, of predefined rules, right? It's not how it works, right? No child learns the difference between a rhino and a hippo receiving some rules from their parents. Okay, it's not how it works. How does it work? How do we learn the difference between a rhino and a hippo? Through example. So we see a rhino in the zoo or in the TV, our parents go, okay, this is a hippo, this is a rhino, this is a hippo, this is a rhino. And through those examples, we develop complex rules in our mind, okay, that makes us differentiate one from the other. Complex rules that are intelligent decisions that we're not able to give a simple explanation for this. Okay, so sometimes people say, of course, I can explain why this is a rhino. It's a rhino because it has a horn, but it's not because of that, right? You can take the horn out. We still look at this picture. We know it's a rhino. Oh, it's a rhino because it's gray. You can paint it orange, we still will know that it's a rhino. And why is that? Because we developed complex rules in our mind, because we learn from examples. Okay, and when we learn from example, we're able to learn all those complex interaction between factors that makes us able to make an intelligent decision. So this is exactly machine learning. It learns from example, and when we learn from example, we're able to make much more intelligent and complex decisions than if we just got a preset rules to follow. Okay, this is why machine learning is taking over everything, because it's able to learn the rules, to find the rules from examples. And when we find the rules from examples, we're able to learn much more complex factors. Okay, another example that I have here is the spam, email spam, spams from emails. Okay, how did it used to work before the rise of machine learning? So, for example, Gmail. The researchers from Google would just write down the rules for the algorithm to identify what's a spam and what is not a spam. For example, it's a spam if it doesn't have my name in the first line. It's a spam if it has buy this or something inside the email. But those rules are very simplistic and do not work very well. Okay, how does it work spans now? And spans now, it's not something that we think about too much, but 10 years ago, it's something that really bothered everyone here. The amount of spams that we used to get on emails, and now we barely think about it. But if you go to a spam filter on your Gmail, you see how many spams you get. You get like, I get dozens and dozens of emails every day from spam, and it's pretty good, works pretty well, but it didn't work so well 10 years ago. I used to get a lot of spams, even though there were these rules from Gmail. So how does it work now? The researchers from Google develop algorithms that learn what's a spam from data. Okay, so you insert like thousands of spams, millions of spams inside the algorithm, and you tell the algorithm, okay, this is spam, this is not, this is spam, this is not, this is, and the algorithm learns how to identify the characteristics of an email that makes it being a spam versus non-spam, okay, which is very complex. As I told you, it's not because it doesn't have my name in the first line that it's a spam. It's not because it has buy this that it's a spam and so on. It's a complex decision. It's an intelligent decision. Okay, so it involves necessarily complex rules. And through examples, we're able to learn these complex rules. Okay, so this is machine learning. Usually we are interested in practical decision-making problems, which it's a very interesting thing to focus in healthcare, because in healthcare, decisions are very complex. Okay, we do not have a simplistic decision for most of our main health issues. For example, no one dies only because of one thing. Okay, so no one dies only because doesn't eat well, or dies only because doesn't work out, or and so on. It's usually a very complex number of factors, such as age, diseases, environmental issues, socioeconomic issues, genetic issues that interact in a very complex way, leading the patients to end up dying or having a severe health issue. And it's exactly for this that machine learning works so well. Okay? To understand those complex interactions between factors that lead to a specific outcome. Okay, so the algorithms are able to do this, to learn these decision rules through complex data. So it's why it's such an interesting area for healthcare, because most of healthcare decisions are very complex. Involves too many factors that interact in a very complex way, which is perfect for these algorithms. Okay. It's exactly what they do best. Learn complex rules from large interactions of data. Okay. So this is the intuition that I wanted to give you of what is, I know that most of you already know this, but to get everyone into the same page, so I can talk to you about those challenges to make those algorithms work where they will be the most important, which is disadvantaged areas of the world, remote areas of the world. Okay, so the main goal of our lab, which is lab depth, which is the big data and predictive analytics in healthcare lab, we want to improve healthcare decisions, especially in disadvantaged areas. Okay, why is it so important in disadvantaged areas? Because you have a lower number of professionals. You have those professionals usually have less qualification, and you usually have less access to exams, to medical exams and so on. So it's going to, we hope, to radically improve the decisions on those disadvantaged areas. Okay, but in order for and exactly because the algorithms are going to be able to learn help with diagnosis and prognosis. Okay. They're going to help the physicians to diagnose the patients correctly, and after the diagnosis, what is the best intervention? Okay? You'll be able to learn those complex, difficult decisions. But in order to make them work there in those areas, we do in our lab, we do believe there's three main challenges, okay, to make this work. First, in those remote areas, we have less data. We have less variables, we have less data from patients. So using those data, are we able to develop algorithms that help those professionals? Okay? Because there are a lot of exams that are really expensive and show a lot of important information about patients, but they're not available in those disadvantaged areas. Okay, so we have to work with what we have on those areas. Is it enough to use the data that those areas already collect? Is it enough for those algorithms to learn how to help with difficult decisions, intelligent decisions? So this is the first challenge. The second challenge is we're probably going to have more data, for sure, right? We do have more data in large areas. Okay, we have more patient data and so on. If we train those algorithms in San Jose, will it work in the countryside, in the little cities in the countryside for patients there? Okay, it's still an area of research. So if you imagine an algorithm that makes intelligent decisions for patients from here, will it work in other areas of the country? Not necessarily. Okay, why? Because the patients are very different. Okay, the professionals are very different. The exams availability is very different. So everything is very different. Okay, so an algorithm that learns to make intelligent decisions here in San Jose do not necessarily work in the countryside. Okay, so how do we find this out? How do we test this? And how do we correct this if it's happened? And the third one, how do we get those algorithms into those physicians from the remote areas? Okay, those remote areas, especially in Brazil, where we do not have internet access. Okay, so where we do not have an electronic medical record, right? Where the physician still writes things in paper. Okay, how do we get those algorithms to those physicians? This is the third challenge. So we have, in our opinion, in our lab, three main challenges. First one, do those areas collect enough data or enough variables for those algorithms to learn? Second one, if those algorithms learn in the big cities, will they work equally well for patients in the countryside? And the third one, how do we get those algorithms to those physicians? Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit of the research we have been doing in Brazil. So this is a study that we published in 2021 with funding from the Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, where through a partnership with the municipality of São Paulo, we got data from every single birth, from every single baby in São Paulo. And in Brazil, we collect routinely data from every single birth from the whole of Brazil. We have like around 40 variables, 40. variables collected for every single baby that is born in Brazil, like weight of the baby, number of weeks of gestation from the mother, the scolarity of the mother. It's like 40 variables about the baby and the mother. So we got all those data from every single birth in Brazil, and the municipality told us which of those baby ended up dying in the first month. Okay, what we call neonatal mortality. Mortality of the baby in the first month. Okay, so we had the characteristics of the baby and the information if this baby was died or did not die in the first month of life, neonatal mortality. Okay, so what we do here, we develop algorithms from data from 2012 to 2016, where we made the algorithms learn. Okay, so the algorithms had the full data from every single baby 2012 from 2016, and the information if the baby died or not. So the algorithms learned the rules to predict which baby is going to die, okay, based on the characteristics of the baby. So it had the whole characteristics of the baby and the information, the baby died or no. The second baby, this is all the whole characteristic, the weight, the gestational age, the scolarity of the mother, and so on. Okay, the second baby died. The third one didn't die, and so on, for millions of babies that were born in São Paulo. Okay, so this is data from 2012 to 2016. And then we decided that the algorithms learned the rules, and what do? We brought data from the following year. Okay, so this is very common in machine learning. Machine learning is a very practical field. We want to see if those algorithms will work in real life settings. Okay, so we brought data from the following year, and we didn't tell the algorithm what happened to the baby. The algorithm had to predict the probability of each baby given the characteristics of each baby dying in the first month of life. Okay, using those rules that it learned from the previous years. Okay, so it did not know what happened to the baby. It had to give a probability using those rules that it learned from the previous years. Okay, and here is our results in this graph. So in the x-axis, we have the probability of that each algorithm gave for the baby dying in the first month of life, and in the y-axis, the reality. So when then the full line is the perfection, and the dotted lines are the results of our algorithm. So it's very close to perfection. When our algorithm said that it had a high probability, for example, 90%, we would go on and check, and within those babies that the algorithm said 90%, 90% of those babies ended up dying. Okay? When the algorithm said 50%, we checked, and 50% of those babies ended up dying. When it said 10%, we checked, and 10% of those babies ended up dying. So it had what we call a good calibration. So it's getting right the probabilities. Okay, not only if this baby is probably dying, not dying, it's getting right the probabilities, which is something that's going to be very important for us to give the physician, right? To say the physician, okay, this baby has a 94%, for example, probability of dying. Okay, and we're into talks with the municipality of São Paulo that in the moment that they get all of this online for the hospital to fill everything online, our algorithms will run inside the system and will give straight away a probability. Okay, so the hospital inserts the characteristics of the baby, you will get back straight away the probability of this baby dying in the first month of life. Yes, the you see is the area under the curve, area under the rock curve. Okay, it's the most robust metric that we have for predictive performance. Okay? It's the hardest. Okay? It's the one we use the most in machine learning prediction. Okay, and another thing, so it had pretty good, and this is the first challenge, right? So this is data that is collected for every single birth in Brazil. So it has predictive information to help with decisions. Okay, especially risk of the baby dying in the first month of life. Okay, so even data that is routinely collected everywhere in Brazil has enough information to develop important machine learning algorithms. So this is our first challenge. And we have been finding this in a lot of different healthcare data, that already the data that is collected normally, we do not need to ask them to collect different data. Already this data that is normally collected within the system already has very interesting information to develop predictive algorithms. Okay? And there's another area that we are very much interested in our lab. It's precision public policy. We have been calling it precision public policy. Every single public policy has to be focused, right? We need to give public policy to the people that are going to be impacted by it, right? So we're not able to give a public policy to every single citizen of our country. We need to give this public policy to the citizens that are going to be positively impacted by this public policy. And here we found that the 5% babies that the algorithm said that it had higher probability of dying. Okay, only the 5% with the highest probabilities included pretty much every single baby that ended up dying. Okay, 90% of all babies were within those 5% with the highest risk. So here you would only need a public policy for 5% of the babies, right? And you would impact almost every single baby that would end up dying. So if you can imagine a public policy for neonatal mortality, okay, to improve neonatal mortality, you'd probably need to do it only for 5% of the babies. You would impact 90% of the actual neonatal death. Okay, so we call this precision public policy. Okay, so this is the first challenge. The second challenge to make those algorithms work in disadvantaged areas, in remote areas, is the fact that we have much more data in large areas, right? Are we able to use those rules, those algorithms, to work equally well in disadvantaged areas? Okay? So here in San Jose, you have a lot of patients, you have a lot of data from a lot of patients. You're able to develop quite easily predictive algorithms. It learns complex rules about diagnosis, about prognosis, and so on. Are you able to get those algorithms to work equally well in areas, in remote areas? Is it possible or not? So we tried this in São Paulo, in Brazil, sorry, where we got a cohort of 18 hospitals in Brazil with COVID-19 data, and we developed algorithms to predict the probability of death within those COVID-19 patients in 2020. And this is a very diverse data. It comes from every single region of Brazil, the whole 5 regions, 18 hospitals. So what do we do here? First, we develop algorithms using data only from patients from this hospital to see if it works well in this hospital, okay? The issue here is that we have less data, okay? We only have data from these patients from these specific hospitals, but it's still specific to these hospitals, and it worked pretty well. And then what we do, we brought more data from different patients from other hospitals to see if the algorithms improve, okay? When we started this, we did not know if it was going to improve or make it worse, okay? And why is that? Because if you train with data only from your hospital, you get very specific, which is good for patients from your hospital, okay? But you have less data too, okay? You have less information for this algorithm to learn. When you bring more data from other hospitals, you bring more diversity, okay, which is good for the algorithms, but you bring different realities. Okay? You bring patients that this hospital probably does not have. Okay? So when we started this, we did not know which strategy would be the best, but we found in the end that it was pretty clear that the best strategy was just to train with data from your hospital. Okay? Brazil is so diverse that when you bring information from different places of Brazil, it brings noise to the learning of the algorithms. It brings different realities that are way too different from this hospital. So it makes the algorithm worse. Okay? So it was the first result of this. We need more groups confirming these results. But if this holds, we're probably going to need specific algorithms for specific hospitals, or doing a strategy that we have been working a lot in the lab, which we call transfer learning. Okay, so you develop those algorithms where you have a lot of data. It learns the basics about this disease for patients in San Jose, and then you leave the fine-tuning of these algorithms for each specific region. Okay, we call this transfer learning. The algorithm learns the basics where you have a lot of data, and the fine-tuning will come from where you will put this algorithm into practice, this specific hospital. Okay, so we now have one postdoc student and 2 PhD students work specifically on transfer learning with data from Brazil. Okay, so this is the second challenge. Will it work? Probably not. Okay, if you transfer an algorithm exactly like it is, okay, from San Jose to the remote areas of Costa Rica, you probably not work equally well. You probably need to do some transfer learning techniques. Okay, this is specifically important for the next few months or the next few years, where we're going to have in healthcare algorithms coming from New York, algorithms coming from London. Okay, it's going to work terribly not well for us, for sure. Because even algorithms within our countries do not work well in the countryside. So if you bring an algorithm that learns from data from New York, from Boston, it's probably not going to work well either, or even worse. Okay, so this is the second challenge. The third and final challenge: how do we get those algorithms to physicians where we do not have electronic medical record? And here we developed a mobile application. Okay, so even though the physician doesn't have an electronic medical record, the physician has a smartphone. So here we developed an application that runs machine learning algorithms within this app, this mobile app, and we were able to test first the acceptance of physicians, which is something that for people outside of healthcare, I usually get this a lot. Like, okay, the machine learning healthcare, it's a very exciting field, but the physicians will never accept this. Okay, it's not the reality that we see in healthcare. Okay. Every time that a physician understands what machine learning is going to give the professional, which is a subsidy for better decisions, these physicians usually get very excited about it. And here we confirmed it. Our sample of 69 physicians from the 5 regions of Brazil, we got very high acceptance of the usage of machine learning algorithms to improve decisions. And in this first study, we found that the physicians were very interested into getting details from the algorithm. Okay, so percentage of errors, uncertainty graphs, explainability. So in this first step, this first part of machine learning healthcare, physicians are very interested into getting details from the algorithms. I think that in the future they'll just be more interested in just getting the result and that's it. But in this first part, they're very interested into knowing more how those algorithms work. Okay, so the 3 challenges to get those algorithms to work in disadvantaged or remote areas. First of all, do we collect enough data already to train algorithms? The answer is we do. Okay, we do collect a lot of data in healthcare that can be used to train machine learning algorithms. I think that in the future, as healthcare and the physicians and the health professionals see the importance of machine learning algorithms, they will be very open to collect other data that we suggest for them to collect. Okay, but I don't think it's time now. I think the time now is just to not interfere and only use the data that they already collect, which we have been showing that has a lot of predictive power, a lot of predictive information to improve decisions. Okay, so our first challenge is, yes, we collect a lot of interesting data already that can be used for machine learning algorithm. The second challenge was, can we move those algorithms around? For example, an algorithm that learns from the big city. Probably not. Okay, those algorithms will not work well in different areas. You're probably going to have to do transfer learning techniques. Okay, and the third one was this one: how do we get those algorithms to work in those remote areas? There's options such as mobile apps for the physicians. Okay, so we can develop those apps and to get the results for the physicians, even if they don't use an electronic medical record. So it's what we have been working in our lab at the University of São Paulo. We're always looking for collaborations everywhere, so it's great to be here and to get to know you and what you've been up to. But yeah, it's what I had to show you. Nothing of this would be able without the amazing team that we have at LabDAPS, which our lab, which we have around 30 researchers nowadays working every day to develop algorithms to improve healthcare decisions. This is our website. This is my Twitter, and the students now have set up an Instagram account to do machine learning and artificial intelligence scientific news and information. So if you're interested, follow them there. This is my email. Welcome everyone to visit São Paulo in Brazil. It's a real nice city. I really enjoy it. And it has some pretty cool stuff to do. So thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. I think we have some time for questions.
Muchas gracias, Alexandra. Thank you very much. Y eso que no dije, que él venía ayer a Costa Rica, llegaba ayer y hoy y el vuelo se atrasó y llegó hasta esta mañana. Entonces, muchísimas gracias. Bueno, vamos a pasar a la parte de preguntas. Quien quiera hacer la pregunta en español o en inglés. Adelante, si tengo alguna pregunta.
Thank you, Alexandra, for the explanation. It was really interesting. So you mentioned at the beginning that this is going to be increasing over time, and this is not going to stop anytime soon, right? You mentioned about data, about hardware dedicated to specific data collection, gathering, right? Do you think for the health part of this whole thing, do you think like smartwatches or the technology that we have today is just enough to start getting those, let's say, input to start predicting more accurately the condition that we have, or do you think we are lacking still some development in terms of hardware to monitor what is happening in our body?
It's a very interesting field right now because we have been finding out that some things that we didn't think was important, it didn't have predictive power. It has a lot of predictive power. For example, a blood exam. During COVID, we found so many amazing things from the results of our blood exams. We have had some amazing results from the retina of the eye, how much health information you get from the retina of the eye. So I think that in the near future, we're going to learn a lot from these things that we do not think it's so important as of right now. For example, the smartwatches, right? It has. I have been seeing a bunch of research that are able to predict a lot of stuff only from like the walking steps and how much you sweat and those sensors on the smartwatch. So I think it's coming. It's coming a future like this. Even stuff that we didn't know was important for health or we collected for other reasons. We will find us that those algorithms can learn interesting stuff from it. And I do think that now we collect more than enough data for that. And it's probably enough already change a lot healthcare for the better. And then in the future, we're gonna there is gonna develop, and we're gonna able to say, okay, we get a lot of predictive power from this specific exam, and then people are going to do more of that exam. Okay, so we're gonna have people collecting data specifically for machine learning algorithm. I don't think it's the time still. I think there is a lot of low-hanging fruits with routinely collected data or the data that we already have available. So I think it's the first step, and I do think that we're going to take so much more information of this than we expected.
Hi, Alexander. My name is Cristina. I am passionate about birds and also kids. And one of the things I saw is that there's one research about neonatal mortality. When I have my first son, he almost died. And he spent 10 days in the UCI. And one of the things I am interested in the research is what kind of data was collected and to predict those things. The questions go in this direction. Things can be affected during the way the baby born, and there are some other factors that affect that baby during the pregnancy and during the way the baby is gave birth. And I know that Brazil has it's reaching or is more than 50% of C-sections. And from my experience, I can say that it's incident. So I am interested to know if the inputs that were researched are just before the baby born or was after that.
Great. So in here for this study, we only collected data from after the baby was born. Exactly after. So every time that a baby is born in Brazil, you have to fill this declaration of newborn. The hospital has to fill, and 98% of all babies in Brazil are born in hospital. So the hospital has to fill this declaration of newborn, and it's all information after the birth. Okay, but we do have a study that we are following the pregnancies, okay? And we have been finding many more interesting and important information during the pregnancy, which could prevent, better the neonatal mortality. For example, the baby is not growing well, the baby has this issue, to predict the risk of the baby dying or the baby being born with low birth weight, with low gestational age. So we have been starting to do that, and we have been finding that we're able to predict, based on the evolution of the pregnancy, which baby is going to be a premature birth, okay? Which will be very important to prevent the premature birth. You know, we have a few techniques in healthcare that we are able to make the pregnancy go longer, and when we are sure that it will be a premature birth, we can start these preventive measures, and also for low birth weight. So information during pregnancy is very rich, very important. The issue that in Brazil we do not collect information from pregnancy. It's not mandatory. The information about newborns is mandatory. It's why we use that in the first study. But the potential of using pregnancy information is going to be huge to prevent. And it's the interesting thing about machine learning, how much is going to liberate and incentivize preventive care, right? Because when you have a prediction that something bad is going to happen, for sure, and you can show that it works, right? People are going to start taking preventive measures more seriously. Okay, so if you tell a pregnant woman that she has like a 95% probability of the baby being born premature or with lower birth weight, is such a strong information that you have more acceptance for preventive care. to start preventive care. So it's an interesting thing about machine learning. People usually think that we're going to be too technical and too focused on death and mortality, and no, it's going to bring up the preventive care, the important part of healthcare.
Well, thanks. Yeah, Alexander, so I may have a ton of questions because the topic is actually really interesting, but maybe just so that we can be more straight to anybody else, I have two main questions. Like the job that you guys do at LabDots covers a field in medical science, so being that we are applying data analysis and machine learning for this, the confidence level that you guys have to provide to your clients, it's got to be, I don't know, so that's one of my questions. It's got to be extremely high because we are playing with lives here.
Exactly.
So that'd be like one of my questions. What were your challenges in providing the confidence level that your client requires? And then when you were talking, you mentioned that you guys applied the algorithms and the predictive analysis on the main hospitals, but when you moved that model to other areas that maybe they weren't as complex or had as many data gathering tools, you noticed that the model didn't work properly. So I don't know if by the end, when you noticed that, you guys noticed some kind of biases as to why that could happen? I don't know, so maybe just if you could answer the questions, please.
Great. So starting with the last one, we have a postdoc that is actually working on that. Try to explain previously, before we run these algorithms in this hospital, if an algorithm that comes from another hospital is going to work or not well in this. Okay, to try to understand why it's not working, and then to predict if it's not going to work well. For example, she's looking at around 10, 15 different variables. For example, it could be that my hospital has very specific kinds of patients. Okay, so yeah, bring new data, it's not going to work well. It can be that my specific hospital only treats mostly patients with one specific disease. Okay, so you bring patients with different diseases, not going to work out. It can be that my hospital has very specialized physicians, so they're able to do a better work in this patient, to predict better routinely in this patient. So it has a lot of different possibilities. Or my hospital is really small, it doesn't have all the exams, or it's too big. So she's trying to figure out why an algorithm will not work in a different hospital, so we can learn previously and do not put those algorithms in this hospital. So this is a very interesting field. She just sent me an email this afternoon. She's wrapping up this study. The first one is the predictive performance, as we call, right? We cannot have errors in machine learning in healthcare. It's one thing if an algorithm's errors the best route, the traffic, if it's better to turn left or turn right. Okay, you don't want the algorithm to make a mistake, but I mean, I will lose 1 minute of my life, right? If it's better to turn right or turn left, the algorithm gets it wrong, I lose 1 minute, 2 minutes. It's okay. An algorithm that gets wrong my disease, it can cost my life. So it's much more consequential. It's the reason why we haven't started putting this algorithm into practice, because the algorithms are getting better. Okay? We're getting more data. We're learning more about how they work. So this is the worst that those algorithms are ever going to be. Okay? In a month, they're going to be better. In 2 months, they're going to be even better. In 3 months, even better. So it is a very difficult scientific debate of when we are going to put those algorithms into practice. There is a consensus that maybe not now, okay? But there will be a time that there will be a debate. Okay, are we ready? Is the field ready to start changing our healthcare? Are the algorithms good enough? Are the data collected good enough? Is this the time? It will be a growing area of debate. But usually when people ask me, what are the main challenges of getting those algorithms into healthcare? And people usually want me to say, oh, the physicians, it's hard to put those algorithms into the electronic medical record. I usually tell them, no, the main challenge that we're not allowed to make mistakes in healthcare. So we need predictive performance to be really high. We need these algorithms to be good. We need those algorithms to work really well. This is the main challenge, I think. So your question is right on point. We're gonna have to wait until those algorithms make very little or no mistakes in order to put them into healthcare.
Hello, my name is Hector. I'm very grateful for your presentation, and very informative. I'm very interested in the emphasis you placed on the techniques and transfer learning. You also mentioned that it's very important, or at least one of the challenges is to reduce the number of variables to the most important ones, to the minimum, essentially. So if let's say we train an algorithm on a specific place with the only basic rules, this algorithm or this learning is transferred to a specific region, the fine-tuning is done there. But since we are dealing with diseases and viruses and all this that evolves and mutates quite fast, let's say that this algorithm is fine-tuned in a specific region, and then it has to learn continuously that this virus, bacteria, infection, or whatever is changing here. And then it has to kind of expand its number of variables to say this is the basic of this. And then maybe we can actually export that to some other region and say, hey, it's very likely or very probable that this is going to mutate to this other region. So has it been considered the possibility, I'm quite ignorant of this, I'm sorry, but that this method or this technique can be actually used to track mutations or track transformations, and how that accounts for the number of variables that we are managing each time we fine-tune that algorithm.
Yes, this is another very, very important point. As we expect that machine learning is going to change healthcare, as we expect, is going to change a lot in healthcare. So an algorithm that learns from pre-machine learning era, right, it's probably not going to work well post-machine learning era, because everything's going to change, right, as we expect. Like the drugs are going to be different, the interventions are going to be different, the quality of the decisions are going to be different. So how do we prepare for those changes that are coming, even more than the mutations, as you mentioned, which are also important? And it's a very close challenge. We call this online learning or continuous learning, which are algorithms that make decisions and the decisions comes back. Okay, the final results comes back. So it's able to learn continuously. Okay, we call this continuous or online machine learning. We have a few students working on this too in our lab. It's a very interesting scientific challenge. How much do you let those algorithms relearn from new data versus how much you keep the previous information? Because you can have seasonal effects here, right? It can have effects of the weather of the day, or you can have effects of there's a contamination in the water that's not going to happen anymore. So how much do you let those algorithms relearn from new data? Okay, we have an issue here. We call it overfitting, right? The algorithm learns from small details on data, and it changes because of those small details. So it's a very interesting scientific debate. We're working on it. It's called continuous learning. It's already important, but as machine learning changes healthcare, it's going to be even more important. So the algorithms of the future are going to be continuous learning.
Hello. It's more of an administrative question rather than a technical question, but mainly because I work on product design for medical devices. And one of the most complex things is like the confidentiality of medical records. How are you managing that, like for not everyone to be able to access your database, or how are you managing the same doctors not selling those informations to any third party?
Exactly. No, this is a very important challenge. In Brazil, we have a data privacy law from 2018. which is correctly very strict on medical data. So we follow those rules. We have a judge, a federal judge, which is a specialist in data privacy, who works with us on those issues. So we are very careful about this. We do not work with identified data from the patients. So in every single work that we do, we never know the name, the cell phone, the address, or anything like that. It's all unidentified data. And then we try to keep with the rule. It's good for us that Brazil has very strict rules, so we just follow them. It's what we do, so we don't have to worry about anything else except following the strict rules that we have. So, yeah, very important.
Hi, Alexander. My name is Juan. Thanks a lot for the talk. I'm curious how you see in healthcare the analogs to like LLMs. And so large language models are very good in part because basically they scrape the whole internet, right? And so there's a ton of data there. But with healthcare, going back to that point about privacy and security, do you think it would take a governing body, basically centralize and potentially have a foundation model and then maybe specialize and fine-tune it? And so is there a willingness in Brazil to do something like this? Do you think it would even work? Because you were talking about, okay, specific hospitals train from the ground up, right? And so I guess the balance between centralized foundation models and specialized, which would require policy in the middle, as opposed to forget about it because it won't even make the cut from a public policy perspective.
Yes. So the generative AI, it's a very exciting field, and it will help a lot in healthcare. It's already helping a lot of physicians to help them with the diagnosis and doubts. But as you said, it's algorithms that learn from data that the physician should already know. Okay, so it's information on textbooks. Okay, the physician textbook. So if this patient has these symptoms, and these symptoms is probably the issue is probably this. It's very basic rules that those algorithms are able to learn. It doesn't learn from data from patients specifically. It learns only the information that the physician should already know. Okay, so if a patient has this issue, it's usually a sign of this disease, but it doesn't get too specific. It's very broad. It has been helping a lot of physicians with those basic decisions, but it hasn't learned anything new. Okay, it's just a summary of the literature, a summary of the internet, or something like that. But it hasn't been trained specifically for healthcare data, right? It's just basic internet stuff. But it still helps a lot. I think we're going to have LLMs fine-tuned. We already have there's a Google group that does the Palm Med, which is an LLM for medicine, and it's going to help a lot the physicians. But as I said, it's a basic information. In the end, it learns information that physicians should already know. It's not learning new stuff. It's not learning detailed stuff. It's not giving a probability. Okay, if it gives a probability, it's a made-up probability. It's not rigorous testing probability. So it's going to help, but I think that this field that I showed here, which we now call predictive machine learning, right? It used to be the whole machine learning, but then ChatGPT showed up, which is great. So we differentiate them as generative AI, which is ChatGPT and so on, from predictive AI, which is what we do. Predictive AI, we're able to learn the details and new discoveries and specific information and probability for each patient. Okay, LLMs will learn from the textbooks, and we just say, okay, so if a patient has this diagnosis, but it's all very basic, very broad. But it will be very important, I think.
Bueno, tenemos espacio como para 2 preguntas más.
Right, so my question goes from the pre-work that you had to do to start building the models, mostly on the topic you mentioned on that before you could even start, you needed to understand, the business, the field of work. I was just wondering, like, the guys that we see in the picture here, are they all data scientists, or are they any specific specialists in healthcare? Like, what was the team built of? They were all computational savvy guys, or do you also have, I don't know, doctors? Or?
So here, it's a very diverse engineer, dentist, economist, physician, mathematician, economist, nutritionist, nurse, physicist, engineer, statistician, physician. So it's a very diverse group. But every time that we start in a field, for example, cardiology study, we are very fortunate that we are at an university, which is also the largest in Latin America. So if we need a cardiologist, we have some of the best cardiologists all on the same building as us. So we usually just knock on their door and we show the study to them. And as you said, the pre-training of the algorithms, we need to know first which variables will probably be important. We don't want to bring noise to the algorithms, right? If you have a variable that has absolutely nothing to do with this disease, we usually take it off before, so we won't get into the overfitting issue. If we just throw everything, there is a risk that the algorithms will model noise or unimportant information. So we do that. We always also ask every time, is this an important prediction for you? Would you do something with this prediction? For example, the prediction of the patient will have hypertension in 5 years, for example, or will have a heart attack in 15, and so on. We usually ask them, okay, will this be important information for your daily work? And we usually ask them, which time during the treatment of the patient would you want to have this information? So we would only train with data that they have in this specific time. Okay, for example, if a physician says, okay, I would want to know this the exact time that the patient steps into my office. Okay? So we will only train with variables collected at this time. Okay, so there's a lot of different factors that we need to have this specialist with us. So every single study that we do, we bring specialists in this medical field, specific medical field, so we can work that with them. First, what is the variables that you think? It doesn't have to be variables, only the variables that are everyone knows that it's important. We usually tell them, okay, it doesn't need to be a causal variable. It can be an indirect variable or something that maybe it's related, maybe it's not. The algorithm will learn. We just want to take off variables that are used to diagnose a completely different disease, for example, or has nothing to do with this disease. So we do a little bit of filtering of variable cleaning like that. We also ask, is this an important issue for you? The prediction, will it help with your decisions? And the third, when would you want to have this prediction? So we will only use data that is collected before that. But yes, we always bring a specialist all the time.
Muy bien. Yo tengo una pregunta también. Una pregunta. Well, I understood from your presentation that if the data and the algorithms that you use for a particular area in your country might not work for another one. However, we're thinking about Costa Rica. We, of course, would like to do some research eventually on the same domain. And so what could you recommend us, or what experiences could we transfer from the knowledge you have developed? I'm pretty sure some of the students would like to eventually do some research, and if we had the data, of course, that's another thing. But what could you recommend us?
Yes, it's one thing that we are very interested in to do international studies. Now we're doing a study with 8 countries where we are trying to see first will the algorithms that learn pretty well in one country, will it work? Because it's different from hospitals, right? Hospitals are very specific patients, right? We have found that hospitals do not transfer well, but what about countries, right? If it learns something from the entirety of Brazil, will it work well in Costa Rica? Will it work well in other places? And if not, how do we do transfer learning for this? Is it better for the algorithm to only learn from data from your own country? And so there's a lot of different challenges that we have been finding. And I told you about the hospital, which didn't transfer well. Countries have been transferring well. Okay, so an algorithm that learns from data from Brazil, we have been finding that it works well in Nigeria and in Kenya. Okay, because it's a much broader information. Okay, it's not just a specific hospital with specific patients and specific doctors. It's a knowledge of the disease when you use the entire country. Okay. So this way it transfers pretty well. But we have been still, even if it transfers well, we're trying to make those transfer learning techniques so it works even better in different countries, and to try to see when it won't work in a different country, and what is it learning really from the disease that transfers so well. So there's a lot of international collaboration that we have been started, and we're looking forward to using data from Costa Rica too, and to see all these little nuances and how to make those algorithms better. Because I think it's the main challenge. We cannot make mistakes. How do we train those algorithms the best way so it won't make mistakes? And we need to know all these nuances in the data.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias a todas las personas que hicieron preguntas. Ha estado muy interesante, hemos aprendido muchísimo. De verdad, muchísimas gracias, y ojalá que esta no sea la última vez que te tengamos por acá y que podamos seguir comunicándonos y cooperando, ojalá, entre las dos instituciones. Estoy segura que hay más preguntas, pero tenemos espacio ahorita en el cóctel para conversar entre nosotros y reencontrarnos, muchos de nosotros. Y bueno, quiero finalizar agradeciéndole también al Tecnológico de Costa Rica. Yo soy parte de la institución, pero a las autoridades del Instituto Tecnológico que nos permitieron tener este evento y traer a Alexander desde Brasil. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, Alexander. We are very happy. We are very happy that you're here. So we have more time for, I hope we have more time for a little, some questions during the cocktail.
Of course.
All right.
Gracias. Thank you. Obrigado.
Podemos pasar entonces aquí saliendo hacia la izquierda donde dice cafetería, ahí vamos a servir el cóctel. No se vaya nadie, por favor. Vamos a dejar esta sala, sí, se puede dejar abierta. No, mejor no sabemos.